demonstrating ethical practice. So let me just share the screen with you before we just get into this entire discussion. So before we move ahead, we will be having a discussion based, we will be going through the entire demonstrating ethical practice. At any point of time, if you have got a question, I would request you can raise your hand so that we can address that thing, because it is really important for each one of us, so that to understand every single aspect of this thing. In the last session, we had taken an overview of all the competencies. Today, we are deep diving into one of the competencies, and this is one of the very, very, very important competencies which forms the foundation of the overall things. Because let us understand this thing. The business dynamics have changed over a period of time. It is changing at a very, very rapid pace. The awareness about coaching is going up drastically. And more number of individuals, corporates, everybody is getting into the coaching stuff. And here it becomes extremely important that how, as an ICF credentialed coach, you are demonstrating that high level of ethical standards. And this is one of the biggest differentiating factors. When we are talking of, a lot of people call themselves as, with due respect, they call themselves as coaches. But here we are talking of ICF credential coaches, where ethics are of prime importance. Throughout, at all points of time, as individuals, one has to ensure that we are maintaining the ethical standards. So let us get further into this entire thing. This is one of the first coach competencies is there. And what all it demonstrates, understanding and consistently applying coaching ethics and standards of coaching. Second point, complete knowledge about the ICF guidelines. Third, interactive session on achieving the ICF coaching competency model 1, which we are going to discuss a lot of things, and experience sharing. So let us go into this ethical code of conduct. So when we are talking of ethical code of conduct, it is essential for everybody to follow and meet ethical standards in your work as a coach. Now, this first and the foremost thing, it all starts with, as I always mention this thing, I reiterate this fact, it all starts with ourselves. If as a coach, if one is ethical in every single thing, whatever we are doing, then only one can live up to those ethical standards. And you have to work as a coach and come from a set of ethics and principles that both of you and your clients depend on. So let us understand this entire thing more into the detail. So today's session is a blend of the ethical practice and the coach competency. So now, first and the foremost thing, let us understand there are 4 broad sections of coach responsibilities. The first one is, if I'm talking of responsibility to clients, that is the first set of things. Second section is responsibility to practice and performance. Third one is responsibility to professionalism. And the fourth one is responsibility towards society. So we will move each into each of these responsibilities. I would request everybody, please understand these things in detail, because this is something which is very important. And today, even the slightest deviation or the breach of ethical code of conduct can put the entire thing off track. So it is very important for, as individuals, as coaches, for us to understand how ethical practices have to be implemented. So moving ahead, first we are going to discuss about responsibility to clients. So first and the foremost thing is that, let me just give you a brief, because there is a term which I'll be using it. If everybody is aware about it, well and good. If some people are not aware about it, for their understanding. Now, there are 2 types of coaching. One is an individual coaching, where coach is there and a coach is there. And then there is a direct agreement which can happen, whatever the case may be. At times, when we talk of executive coaching, there are 3 parties involved. The company or the entity which inducts you as a coach, and there is somebody else as a coach. So here, there are 3 parties. The party who's going to pay the fee, who has inducted you, is known as the sponsor. So sponsor is one body, coach is another, and the coach is the third. So this is something which, because we will be using this word sponsor quite often. So for the understanding of everybody, sponsor is the person, is the entity which inducts.
Apologies for speaking in between. I guess the slides are not moving.
Okay, slides are slides. In fact, there is a, it's completely discussion based, which is there.
Okay, okay, understand, fine.
Yeah. So in fact, I will rather I would say, let me just
No worries. Then it's perfectly all right. I thought.
take through this. Yeah, yeah. It is slides. Slides are very much there. It is
Okay.
because it is more understanding, deep diving into this thing. So
Right.
slides content, definitely it is there, but it is at a very broader level. I would say at a macro level. We are deep
Fair
diving
enough.
into this thing.
Fair enough. I thought probably there is a step by step when you are discussing.
No, no, absolutely fine. So I'm just taking you through all the step by step things. First, we are discussing responsibility to clients. So first thing comes is that it is very important to explain and ensure the nature of the coaching. It is very, very important right in the before the initial meeting. One has to be very, very clear about the agreement which is there, the financial agreement, the limits of confidentiality, to what extent the information has to be confidential, and other terms of agreement. Now, this is something which is extremely, extremely important, and one has to ensure that these things are made very, very clear, because a lot of times it happens that there is a gap which is there, which is left, and later on during the entire, after a couple of sessions, we realize that there is a challenge which has come up. So whenever there are three parties involved, a sponsor, coach, coachee, it has to be made very, very clear to all the three parties which information will be shared with the sponsor, which information will be shared with the which will not be shared with the sponsor, and whatever is the agreement. So right, in terms of that is the responsibility towards the clients. We have to ensure as a coach that these things are crystal clear for the understanding of everybody, and ensuring that we are demonstrating a ethical practice. Second point which comes is that next set of responsibilities, that creating an agreement regarding the roles and the responsibilities of all the parties involved with the whether with respect to the overall services. Now, when we are talking of creating an agreement is one of the very, very important aspects. And here, let us understand, a lot of times across different geographies, every different geography, different parts of the globe, there are different sets of guidelines which are there, different sets of laws which are there, and people operate in a different manner. So like if I have to talk of India per se, the contract, that is something which is not very much prevalent. Even today, if you get into an individual coaching session and you say that, okay, we have to get into a contract which we have to sign, the coachee may be reluctant, we know each other so very well. Why do you need a contract? Whatever you've said, it's relationship based. So what do we do in this case? In this case, the answer is no. As a coach, if one has to come what may, ensure that you get into an agreement with crystal clear terminology before the commencement of the session, irrespective whatever may be the case. This is something which is very, very important, and which is to clearly state the roles and responsibilities. Because at times, if the roles and responsibilities are not clearly stated, there is a mismatch in the expectation level of the coachee, and there is a disconnect which may happen. So that is the second responsibility when we are talking about responsibility towards clients. Third is the maintaining the strictest level of confidentiality with the parties to be agreed upon. So now, all the conversations which are having, all the information you are having, that has to be completely, strictly confidential. Come what may, whatever may be the case, even wherever, once you are out of the coaching session, that information has to be kept confidential. That is the most important aspect. Now, when we are talking of confidentiality space, we will be discussing more about it. It includes every single thing, right? Even to the extent, right, from the mobile number and the email ID of the respective individual, or any information, any psychometric tests, any information which you have achieved, which you have got out of that entire thing, that has to be kept completely confidential. At any point of time, as an ICF credentialed coach, one cannot compromise on the confidentiality piece. That has to be made very, very clear to all the parties. Now, this is something which is very important. Every single, understand one thing. As a coach, as an ICF credentials coach, there are two important points. One, client-centric. Second thing is that transparency. Now, when we are talking of transparency has to be there in all these aspects. And when I'm following up the ethical principles when we are discussing about, the responsibilities of a coach, one has to be transparent. So whatever is the communication, be very, very, very clear about that. Moving to the next part of the responsibility, which is there, it talks about.
Hey, Ankur,
Yeah, Vijay, please.
I have raised my hand from past 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I thought like.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
I was just about to stop this thing. Please go ahead.
Yeah, before we move into the next session,
Yes,
next topic, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah,
so I have two things. The first one is, you said individual coaching and executive coaching, right? So I heard that there are also a couple of other things which are called team coaching and group coaching.
Yeah.
So does that come into our competency, or we don't deal with that?
So here we are discussing about only two types of coachings: individual coaching and executive coaching. That is one thing. That's it.
Okay. All right.
So
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask that. So if that doesn't come into our thing, then we're good.
Please, it is very important. I would request everybody be very, very clear about today's session, because this is the foundation of all the competencies. So even the smallest of the questions, it's more than welcome. Thank you, Vijay, for asking this. Yes.
The second question. I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. The follow-up question is that you said confidentiality, right? Here is the time. I mean, this is where I'm getting a little confused, because we have to submit 500 hours of coaching practice to get the PCC. And there is also a chance that sometimes it will be picked up for an audit. And at that time, I knew that they will ask only the email ID and phone number of the coachee. But I'm also wondering, like, will they ask the specific of what we have talked about and all, or do they not ask? Because I know that there is no direct connection between ICF and the coachee, but the intermediary can still get the details, right? So is it something that we do or we don't do?
No, that is something which is the last thing one needs to be really concerned about it, because even if tomorrow ICF asks about any particular coaching, that is all completely confidential. And that is I would say, the entire foundation on which everything is built up. So at any point of time, that is not of a concern that whatever is being discussed is being shared with ICF. And that is definitely not the case.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
So Ankur, I also have one question on confidentiality. Sometimes what happens is that, when we have an extraordinary rapport with the client, the client shares possibly a lot more than what just pertains to the case of the client. So what do we do in such a case? Should we ask them to hold back, or should we let them talk, and because we are keeping it confidential anyway?
See, there are two parts to it. One, you said it is the confidential. Whatever information is being shared, that is confidential. That is one part. Having said that, the second part is that client is sharing too much. So at that point of time, we have to, obviously, we have, as a coach, we have to listen to the client. At the same point of time, endeavor has to be to bring back the client into the coaching session if there is a digression which is happening from there.
Right. Okay.
So that is absolutely fine. A lot of times people share information which is not of relevance also for the entire coaching session also.
Correct.
So that is absolutely fine. We have to give that space to the client to speak.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes. Any other question? Yes, you had a question. Please go ahead.
So, like, for example, if a boss, like a company is sponsoring for their client, for their employee, and the company says that they want to know each and every detail of the coaching session. So how do we deal with that kind of a situation?
Okay, so this is a very nice question you have asked. See, whatever at the time of the agreement, everything has to be made crystal clear in all the parties. Like, the company is asking that, okay, I want all the information. The client needs to be aware that, okay, every single part of the information what has been discussed will be shared with the company. That is discussed right in the beginning. So I'll give you one classic example that will help you understand this thing a little better. So this is about last year, because of the confidentiality reasons, I cannot take the name of a company. This is a case which was one of my clients were there. And I had met the CEO, and they had one person who was general manager over there in the finance department. And they were looking at that person, how that person can be, obviously different set of tests and everything were done, how that person can take the position of a CFO. So that was the entire arrangement of the coaching. So at that point of time, it was very clearly discussed that, okay, there are certain set of information which will be shared as a part of the contract with the sponsor, because yes, they need to know how's the development happening in terms of that individual being coached from a, say, for a general manager position to the CFO. And at the same point of time, there were certain information which will be kept confidential. So whatever is stated in the contract, these are the 5 things which will be shared. Apart from that, everything remains confidential. Right? Yes, Ravi, you had a question?
Yeah, Ankur. In continuation of the same thing, right, with regard to the team coaching, like if a coach establishes an agreement with the company, like the sponsor, right, like there might be some conditions, but there won't be any individual contract with actual employees, like whom he is coaching. Okay, in this case, actually, if in the sponsoring agreement, like if he says like he has to share everything what he has discussed with the coachee, right? But normally what happens is like while discussing with actual employees, like coach, like because there is, it's a one-to-one kind of thing, right? Some of them might confide more to the coach, right? At that point of time, that may not be useful, or sometimes maybe like his thoughts may be different, like in continuing the current position or whatever, those kind of things. So that is actually like he might be confiding with the coach as a thinking that like it's a personal kind of thing. Okay, so how exactly like the coach, does he need to share that information back to the company, or like, because like here there is no formal agreement between the coachee and the coach, because the coachee doesn't know like what information this guy is sharing and what not.
So it is, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's what actually I wanted to know, like how exactly it would be.
So in this case, the way it happens is that, again, whatever is the arrangement, if you have said to the sponsor that every single information will be shared, before the commencement of the coaching session, make it very, very clear to the coachees that whatever we are discussing, that will be shared, so that they are clear about it. After that, whatever they are sharing, whatever information they are furnishing it to you, that's absolutely fine. As a coach, it is our responsibility to make it the communication clear with all the parties. Yes, at that point of time, it should not happen that coach is hiding something or some other information is there, or I don't give that. No, that is something which is wrong. And that is why it becomes very, very imperative. When a while back I discussed, it is extremely important to get into a contract. It is extremely important to get into an agreement, because agreement states very clearly the things. Else people may come up and say, no, this wasn't discussed. When it's there in the agreement, all the parties are clear about what are their roles and responsibilities, to what extent the communication can happen, and what all things can be shared.
So you mean to say like the coach need to like during the initial when he's meeting with that team as a group or whatever, so you need to tell them that like whatever being discussed like will be formally shared with the company. Like
yes.
Before
absolutely.
start of all the coaching sessions, right?
Absolutely, it has to be very, very clear.
Yeah, so just for information of everyone, in a executive coaching agreement, so this is the executive coaching agreement, not a team coaching agreement, because it's a company sponsored candidate coming to you, right? So this is called as executive coaching. The team coaching is a different format which you are going to learn subsequently. So in executive coaching, company is not interested in knowing all the conversation what is happening between you and coaching. Company doesn't have time or intention to do it, right? And if the company will put such a clause in an agreement, then the coachee is not going to open out, right? Because if the coachee will know that is each and everything is going to my boss and the company, then he will be very diplomatic, he will not be free. So the companies also understand this particular matter. What company asks you to share a developmental report, right? So that is what the company will look for. So when you will be, means, for example, means of course there's all the companies who basically know it, and if they don't know it, then as a coach, you will basically guide them. You will basically coach them. That is okay. If you want this particular coaching assignment to be successful, this kind of information can be shared with you. The personal discussion or the any discussion what we will have in these particular parameters will not be shared with you, and this is in the interest of the organization and the coachee, right? Now the company will agree that is okay. Okay, we are interested in this. Basically, that is my coachee, my employees at level A. How he is going to go to level B, right? So this is what the progress report is. What company is interested. Like that, you discuss with the company, arrive at a conclusion. Based on that, you will sign the agreement with the company, and then you will inform coachee before, means at when you are going to meet the coachee for the very first time. That is, this is the sponsored agreement between me and the company, wherein I am going to share only this kind of information. The balance personal information and whatever you will share with me will not be shared with the company. Then only company's objective will be achieved, and then only the coachee is going to trust you, and the coachee is going to share everything with you, right? So this you will understand. So right now, just understand that it is not that the company is going to say that is you record the conversation and give us that copy of that particular recording. No company does that.
Yeah, makes sense, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarification.
Yes, Balraj, you had a question?
Sorry. Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Actually, Hemant sir has already answered, but still I will ask because my question was similar to what he answered. Because I was questioning like if there is a contract with company and like you gave the example of general manager and CEO, where a company want a transformation from general manager to CEO. So you said there was a contract signed between company and us where we have hidden something which are not to be shared with general manager, right?
So in that, yeah. So in that case, the company said, I want the information on these 10 parameters.
Right.
So whatever is my discussion pertaining to those 10 parameters that I have to share. Apart from that, whatever conversation I am having with the coachee, that is completely confidential between the coachee and me.
Okay. So you have told this to that general manager.
Yes,
like
yes, it is clear. Even the coachee was aware. These are the 10 points on which the information is there that will be shared.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So let us move ahead. These are very important and interesting aspects, and we will keep on having those discussions in depth. So next point, which comes as a very important responsibility, is that what is the mode of information exchange? Now, with so much of technology being in place and the orientation is more towards technology, every single aspect has to be clearly stated. To what extent, whether it will be email communication will be considered official, or even a WhatsApp communication will be considered official, that has to be clearly stated in the entire contract so that there is clarity. The objective of this entire thing is that clarity is there at any point of time, and there is no ambiguity left at the coach's end and in the entire coaching discussion. Next, moving to we discussed a lot about the confidentiality piece. Next comes a very, very important aspect, is that all the parties needs to be very, very clear about this fact. Under what circumstances the information will not be kept confidential. I repeat, the information will not be kept confidential. So now, here it becomes very, very important. At any point of time, there is an unlawful activity, because the supreme body is the law. Nobody is above than the law. If there is an unlawful activity which is done, or an illegal activity which is against the law, at that point of time, this confidentiality agreement will not stand. If anybody has done something which is an illegal activity or a wrong activity, or which is endangering people, or it is like risking something which is against the law, that is the only case where all this information can be shared with everybody. Only one scenario which is there. Right? Next part which comes as a responsibility. Now let us take a case. There are different people from different sets of backgrounds, and let us take a case. As a coach, you are engaged within an organization, and you are having multiple roles you are doing with them. You are acting as a consultant for in that system also. You may be acting for mentor for somebody in that entire ecosystem. You may be doing some bit of say training work also at that point of time, and coaching work. So now how do we do this thing? So when it is, one has to be very, very clear that there is, as a coach, when it comes to coaching as a profession per se, as a ICF credentialed coach, there is no conflict of interest. There is no conflict of interest throughout the entire thing. For example, say there is a common, you are coaching also someone, and that person is also a part of a different department, and that person comes in two common places to come. That has to be made very, very clear. At any point of time, coaching assignment has to focus completely, separately, and independent. Other areas, wherever you are involved, that is completely different. So at that point of time, as a coach, we have to be mindful that there is no one conflict of interest. Secondly, one must not overlap, especially when one is coaching. So one should not say that, one must not say that, okay, this is something we discussed the other day in that session, which was not a coaching session. No, that is completely wrong. So this is something which is very, very important at any point of time. Please, there should not be any conflict of interest at any point. Right? Moving to the next responsibility. Now, when we are talking of the different coaching sessions, there is a lot of information which is gathered, right? In terms of the reports, in terms of all the data which is there. Maintenance of that data and timely disposal of it, that has to be made very, very clear. For example, say all your coaching sessions are getting recorded. All your information which is getting captured, it has to be made very clear that at the end of the coaching session, after this point of time, this data will be destroyed. All the parties needs to be very well aware about this thing. Okay, today these are the files which are there, where it is stored. The sponsor, the coachee, or the client. Even the coachee needs to be aware. If you're putting up the entire records on a particular drive, the coachee also needs to be aware that this is all the data pertaining to the entire coaching session. This is will be kept on this drive, and after whatever period as has mutually decided, all the records will be discarded or destroyed in whichever format. That format also has to be stated. Like supposing somebody says that all the files will be archived and kept. That is one option. Or someone says that, okay, everything will get deleted and we will destroy all the records. That is it. So that also needs to be stated very, very clearly at that point. Are we good till now? Okay. So moving to the next part of it, again, the responsibilities when we are talking of. As a coach, one needs to be really mindful about this fact that is there a shift in the value received in the coaching relationship? So what is a shift in the value? The entire coaching session, there is a value which is to be derived out of that thing. Correct? So if there is a shift in that, for example, let us understand this with an example. Say someone comes to you for a career transition coaching. After 3 sessions, that person realized, no, I think that I have some other challenge, which is their career transition is not my priority. I need to sort out, say, for example, say some relationship issues or something else. At that point of time, the overall perceived value gets changed. Overall perceived value gets changed. So what do we do at that point of time as a coach? As a coach, it is very important at that point of time to address that thing in terms of seeking help from outside. Let's take the example, say, this is being done by a career transition coach. And at that point of time that coach feels that there is a shift in the value of the coaching relationship, at that point of time, one must feel free to refer to the relationship coach. Or seek wherever there are other set of resources or which are available. So this is something which has to be very, very clear because as a coach, and it is coach's responsibility to be observant. That is the coaching on track. Is the entire coaching sessions going on track? The moment you see there is a shift in the overall value which is happening, now it can be for any of the reasons. So in that case, if it requires termination of a contract also, let's take the case, the coachee is signed for 6 sessions. And after 4 sessions, there is a shift in the value which has happened. At that point of time, one must gracefully terminate the contract. Okay, yes, we had signed up for the 6 sessions, but after 4th session, this is the state. So we cancel the contract. And at that point of time, it is a moral responsibility, whatever the arrangement of the fee, that fee is refunded to the coach. So these are ethical practices which, as a coach, as an ICF credentialed coach, one needs to be very, very important, be mindful about this thing. Are we good till now? So now, in this lot of times it also happens. Let me share with you again different geographies, different places. People get into the contract, and after that, at times coaches try to ensure that they complete the sessions. If such a situation arises, never ever be in that mindset. Never be in that mindset. As a ICF credential coach, just go with the flow. And it is about not about the coaching. It's about the client. We have to be completely client-centered. And at that point of time, wherever it comes, that okay, yes, the need is of the hour is that to terminate the agreement. Please stop that thing and gracefully move ahead. Yes, Vijay, you had a question?
So I was just trying to ask, confirm on that at any point of time, it is the client's agenda, but not our agenda, right? So
100%, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, sir, is there any like 100, I mean, all the time it is valued, or like, is there any exception to this? Like at any point of time, can it be our agenda at any point of time?
No. At any point of time. No, there is one more point which I'll be coming into the later point.
Okay.
There is only one scenario in which it can happen. Okay. There is only 1 or 2 cases which are there, which we'll be covering it in the due course. So
sure.
That will be definitely be answered. In which where the coach also can bring an end to the agreement midway.
Thank you.
That we will be discussing it. Right. So moving ahead with this again. We have discussed about termination, and again, be very mindful about the different sets of contracts. What I discussed a while back, if you are having a different sets of contracts, be very clear in terms of the overall terms and conditions captured in every single contract with the client. And here the significance of contract comes again. Let me give you a simple example. A lot of times it happens that people just send an email and we acknowledge that, yes, it is done. So is that the right way of doing an agreement? The answer is no. It has to be either signed in person, scanned copy, or digitally signed, and that has to come. Then only there is a validity. Otherwise, just one mentions the terms and conditions on the email and the other person responds, yes, agree to this. That is not an agreement. That is not a contract. So, and at any point of time, be very, very, very particular. Very particular about this thing. Yes, it is required to get into the contract because it is for the interest of all the parties, the coachee, the coach, and in case the sponsor is also there. That makes everybody life much more comfortable. Are we good? So moving to the next responsibility when we are talking to the client. Next, yes, Gayatri, you had a question?
Yes, Ankur, I had a question. In case the client feels that the coach is not coming across as effective in any particular case,
right?
What should we do?
What should do as a coach or the coachee?
As a coach, yes. If the client feels that I'm not finding anything effective from this coaching agreement and I want to terminate.
If the coaching,
then what do we do? Do we try to convince the person? Do we try to work other methods?
No. As if the coachee, you see, end of the day, it is the coachee's decision. When coachee comes up with such kind of thing, you can always explore to understand certain things that, okay, what is the challenge which is there? Is there a gap in the overall set of things? That can be done through more of exploration. Having said that, the coachee decides that, okay, I don't want to take forward in terms of sessions. Absolutely, one is free to end the contract. As a coach, one need not pursue the coachee. No, please wait. I will see what is to be done. We have done 4 sessions. Another 2 sessions are left. No, please wait. Don't go. No, we don't have to do that thing. If the coachee has decided that the coachee wants to terminate the agreement, coachee is free to do it. At the same point of time, you may explore definitely what is the challenge which coach is facing or anything else which comes. Okay, did I answer?
Yes, thank you.
So, yes, Vaibhav, you have a question?
Yeah, Ankur sir, means I'm thinking other way around. Let's say if I'm coaching and following all the ethics, whatever code of conducts we have, but still there are some false claim by some coachee. Okay, he let's say there is a cross-gender coaching kind of scenario. Me and that particular coach is there, and there are some claims. So, are there any guidelines that we should have the place which is a glass or open that others can see, or we can have a CCTV camera, or what are the things over there? Because it might happen that you don't know psychological disease that person is having, and suddenly he gets a panic attack, or suddenly he collapses, or something like that. So it's a panic situation for that coach also.
Right.
So how to handle such kind of things?
Okay. Two things. One, very interesting question. First and the foremost thing is that you mentioned, I heard you saying that panic attack and other things. That has to be made very, very clear before the commencement of the coaching session. That contract, that is the person having some sort of, is on medication, is the person having some sort of illness. If the respective person is getting panic attack, that person has to state very clearly. Obviously, you may not ask specifically that you get panic attack. No. One, that awareness about any challenge being faced by the respective coachee, that needs to be stated right in the beginning. Coming to the second point, yes, if you talk of the, like obviously, when we are talking of digital sessions, it is recorded most of the time. At the same point of time, whenever there is a physical session which is happening, so I'll give you my example only. So why to go anywhere else? Wherever I had been doing coaching sessions, yes, there are CCTV cameras. There is whatever the things are being there, it is recorded, and it is made very, very clear. Even the coach is also aware that there are CCTV cameras installed, and whatever is the discussion which is happening, that is getting recorded. So from that perspective, what you asked, yes, these are the things which coach needs to be mindful about this thing. And simple thing is that whatever as a coach, if you are putting up a CCTV camera, state it. State it. It should not happen that I am recording the session without the knowledge of the coachee. Because transparency is the entire key over here. Did I answer your question, Vaibhav? Okay, great. Moving to the next part of the responsibility towards clients. So now at a lot of times it also happens that like you, all of you are from different fields into different sets of businesses also. There may be a situation which may arise that say you recommend your client to something else also, that okay, you need to take some assessments or something else, where as a coach you are getting some compensation out of it. That compensation needs to be stated very clearly that okay, I am referring you to this part of the, say, any third party, and out of this I will be getting, say, whatever X percentage of the commission which is there. This is my compensation, this is my remuneration, this is whatever any benefits which you are deriving out of through referring your client to XYZ service. That needs to be stated very, very clear. Because that is a part of ethics. It should, at any point of time, it should not happen that one hides this. See, these are important ethical practices which one, as a ICF credential coach, one needs to demonstrate. It has to sink into our system. And that's where the entire differentiation which gets created. And last, when we are talking of the next point, last but not the least, when we are talking of responsibility towards clients, is ensure that all points of time, the quality of the coaching is not compromised, irrespective of the agreed compensation or the conditions which are there. For example, let's take the case, say it is decided, they say, okay, for a particular coaching session, say, I'm taking for only for example purposes, for understanding purposes, say it has been decided that one coaching session will be, say, for 10,000 rupees. and another coaching session is say 30,000 rupees. So as a coach, will there be a differentiation in the coaching process, in the entire system, in the delivery? The answer is no. Irrespective, even if you're doing a pro bono session also, make it a point that one does not compromise on the coaching, quality of the coaching, irrespective of the agreed compensation. Yes, Gayatri, you had a question.
No, sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. Actually.
That's absolutely.
Continue.
Are we good till now? This was
Yes.
about the responsibilities towards client. These set of responsibilities, this is also again given on the ICF website also. I would request you to please go through it, check out all the videos which is there, because as we progress in the journey of coaching, this is one of the differentiating factors. Now here one very important aspect which comes is that, let me just share with you. What is it that an individual, as coaches, we are demonstrating? Let us understand in this tech-savvy world, almost everybody is there on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, XYZ, wherever things. As a coach, ethical practice, whatever one is demonstrating, that has to get aligned with everything. It should not happen that I am posting something on Facebook which is contradictory to the ethical aspects. Because you never know. Everybody is being, people check. The moment first they get to hear the name of the person, they go and check the profile on LinkedIn or Facebook. And end of the day, a lot of people, they end up forming a judgment. Oh, this is the coach, but this coach has put in these kind of pictures. No, I don't think, I think there is something a disconnect in that. So this is a very important aspect which one needs to understand. And here it becomes even important as professional coaches, as ICF credential coaches, have these things aligned. Because 9 out of 10 cases, wherever a coaching assignment is going to come to you, somebody would have definitely checked any of your profiles anywhere, wherever, whatever platform. Unless the coach is not there on any of the social media platforms, that's a different story altogether. But that would be a very rare case of rarity. But be mindful about this thing. Yes, Mr. Ramakrishna, you had a question.
If coaching has been sponsored, then who one will be the main client, coachee or sponsor?
See, understand one thing. Who will the main client? What is the definition of main client? The main, let me share with you. A sponsor is the person or the entity which gets the coach in. That, okay, this is what we want to do. These are the terms and conditions. And the sponsor is the one who's going to feed the coach. In simple terms for us to understand.
Okay.
Now coming to the client, the coachee. In executive coaching, over a client is the entity which is there, the sponsor. When we are talking of coach, coachee is the person who's being coached.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Ankur, just to put some fun into that.
Yes,
if I take my kid to the hospital, I pay the money, but the shot will be given to my kid. So just because I am paying the money, I don't get the shot.
That was a good one. Shall we move ahead? Are we good till now? Any questions on the responsibility to clients?
Yes, move ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. If there are no questions, we will move to the second section of the responsibility to practice and performance. Now, understand something at all points of time when we are talking of responsibility to practice and performance. At all points of time, as a coach, it is my own responsibility to ensure that I follow completely ethical behavior and not demonstrate or display any type of unethical activities. Now, this is getting connected with whatever I shared with you a while back. At any point of time, if there is something which comes up, which you feel is something unethical or is detrimental to the overall interest, please raise a flag to it. Now, here, it may be required if say something is, as a coaching contract, something is not going in line, inform the respective parties. Or even if something comes up, refer to the formal authority. Even as in case of individual coaching sessions, there is a complex thing which has come up, which you feel is going to be the detrimental towards the interests of the overall coach and the coachee. You are free to raise that thing to the ICF. Because any type of unethical behavior at the end of the coach can put the credentials into question. ICF can be very strict when it comes to unethical practices. That is something which we need to be really, really mindful about this thing. And here it says, at all points of time, one needs to adhere to the ICF code of ethics. At all points of time. So please go through this ICF, all these roles and responsibilities, the code of ethics, and let this thing sink into it. Because one deviation can be very costly for the entire coaching relationship as well as for the coach. Yes, please, Prashantji, ask question. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
That means it is imperative for a coach, as we as a coach, to inform coaches that there is a body like ICF which exists, and if you are not happy with my coaching, you are free to approach them for any complaints or any justice. Is it imperative?
No, it's not.
It's not imperative. No.
No. See, it is ICF. You are an ICF credential coach. The coachee for coachee may be aware that you are an ICF credential coach. You are a PCC coach.
Right.
But from the coachee's perspective, does it have any relevance? The answer is no. ICF doesn't make a impactful thing on the coachee. Okay, this is ICF is a body or something.
No, but how will ICF know that I have entered into a wrong practices or unethical practices?
So now to answer this question, yes. If in case some sort of complaint gets put up against the coach,
who will complain? I mean, that's what I'm asking. Coaching may not be aware that there is a body called ICF against whom I can raise the complaint about this coach.
If it has been mentioned and stated in your contract that at any point of time there is something which is there, these are the things which you can approach to ICF, then yes, definitely the coachee can.
Exactly. I mean, unless I tell coachee, if I don't tell coachee there is a body like this, I said I'm an independent person. Okay, at the most, okay, it can lead to the police case at the worst, but it may not go to ICF.
See, the point is that everything here, again, I'm reiterating, here it becomes very, very, very important to have the contract clearly stated with terminology and wordings.
Okay.
If required, and it's a one-time exercise. Yes.
So coaches cannot go out of the bond of the contract. I mean, the entire trick is to have the. Oh, sorry, Hemant. Yes.
As a guideline, you need not state points like this. That is okay. If there is any problem, you can approach ICF or something like that. Okay, means this point should not be there as a part of your contract.
Okay,
right?
okay.
For example, yes, if there's a discussion between you and coachee and the coachee asks you question on the ICF, okay, from where you have done and all that, and if you are informing about ICF, it is okay. But this should not be the official point in the contract. Okay, so there are two reasons.
I mean, ICF also may not take objection ki why you didn't tell coachee that I am there as a jurisdictional body and coachee can always approach me in case there is a problem. ICF will not ask me that question.
No. Okay. So number one means since you are asking this question, let me clarify what kind of coach you are. So the number one, you are not coach where the ICF is directly supervising you. You are a coach developed by institute called as Master My Life.
Correct.
This is our curriculum, right? Whatever means you are going to learn so many things which ICF is not even aware, right? And ICF is not bothered.
True.
ICF gives very basic guidelines to a training provider. Okay, you cover my competencies, you cover my process and all that, right?
Okay.
But the entire means what kind of coach, what is the output of this particular program is decided by the training provider. In this case, it is Master My Life.
Master My
Right.
Life. Yes.
So this is the reason why we always write the program name as MML ICF ACTP program,
Correct.
coach training program, right?
Correct.
Why we say that? Because the number one, for example, if you do a graduation, right, you will tell some university name, college name, na?
Yeah, true.
So
True.
your college and university is Master My Life.
Yes.
Right. Now, Master My Life has a holistic understanding, not only in coaching, but in psychology, in emotional intelligence, in variety of the things, and we are going to develop it. So this is the aspect number one. Now, not 100% of you, but some of you are going for a accreditation process. Why I am saying this? Let me explain you this. And again, I will give my own personal example. I have done coaching as per the ICF, coach training as per the ICF guidelines, but I have never opted for the ACC and the PCC and all that, because for me, it is not necessary. That is my call. It is not that I am suggesting you, because when you will have the ACC and PCC, you will get that particular brand image and the access to the corporates and all that. But I never felt that. I immediately started my company, right? So my thought process is different. I don't require a I don't have to be credentialed with the ICF, but yes, I have learned the ICF way, and with my life wisdom, I'm going to do the coaching. So this is my way. So it is not that 100% of you are going to apply to ICF credentials. Why?
I mean, you are saying without applying for ICF credential, you can do coaching practice. There's no problem.
Of course. So means this I covered in induction, and I know that you were
not there.
Induction, because you joined later. I
Yes.
know it.
Yes.
Understand. Once you complete these 135 hours of training and 11 hours of mentoring total, right? Out of the 11 hours of mentoring, 8 hours of group mentoring is already part of the training. After completion of the training, you are going to have 3 individual sessions with the mentors. So the mentors is going to see where is the gap and all that, what is your aspiration, and they are going to mentor you, not coach you, mentor you. They are going to advise you. They are going to share their experience with you, guide you. Okay, so after this particular process, when you will submit your call recordings to us, right? So in the page 3, it is already mentioned that is how we are going to assess, because we are not a certificate issuing factory. We will give you certificate if we think that you are competent and you are going to do some good work. So we are going to assess you. Once we assess you, we are going to give a certificate.
Correct.
That certificate is a joint certificate of Master My Life and ICF. It's a joint certificate. Master My Life and ICF joint certification. So there it will be mentioned that you are certified as coach, and whatever specialization you will choose, you will have 10 specialization options which are there in the brochure, right? And on our website. So there are 10 options. You have to choose one, right? The certificate will mention now you are a executive coach, for example, full stop. You are executive coach. You start your practice. Anyway, you have to start practice before ICF giving you that particular credentialing. Why? Because ICF itself is asking you 100 hours and the 500 hours of practice. How you are going to do it, right? So with this certification, you become a coach. For example, I am not ICF credential, right? Because I never felt the need, right?
Yeah, but then are you, okay, sorry, interpret. Then are you, all these what Ankur has been telling us all this while, do they apply to you? All those ethics and all those rules?
More things applies to us. So I'm going to tell you, see, the ICF, understand one thing, ICF is a governing body. See, the coaching is not a, say, legalized profession wherein there are some rules and regulation of that particular country, right? Means, for example, the doctors are going to take some oath, right? And depending upon the country, there will be some regulations and the laws, right? So the coaching is not that kind of profession, point number one. ICF is a governing body. ICF is one of the topmost governing body. Is ICF the only governing body? No. There are 4-5 main governing bodies of the coaching in the world. One is EMCC, one is ICC, one is ICA, and one is ICF. Now in the world, for example, these 5 bodies are there. I can tell you that is more than 50% of the market share is with the ICF. So ICF is absolutely number one as far as the coaching governance is concerned. And they are the most systematic and all that. So now you are going to be certified by Master My Life, which is an institute which has expertise into people skill, emotional intelligence, behavioral intelligence, coaching, and all that, and ICF. And you are declared as a coach as soon as you get the certificate from the Master My Life. Thereafter, it is up to you to apply to ICF for the credentials.
There you Master My Life will not play any role in that. I mean, you will not play any role. I mean,
step by step. Step by step. Yeah. So whether you want to get credential or not, it is your choice. You have to apply online. See, this is my request to all of you. That is, please read Coach Study Guide. I have personally invested 300 hours in making it. It has all the information, whatever I am telling you, right? Means my language and communication skills are not extraordinary, but the Coach Study Guide has wonderful information. There, all these answers are already there. And
fine, we'll go to that level. Yes.
Yeah. So you read it, and it is there, means in a chapter which has been already completed. So all the information is already there. So there, once you get the certificate from the Master My Life, right, you first do the coaching practice. For example, 100 hours for ACC or the 500 hours for the PCC. Then only you are eligible to apply to ICF for getting credentials.
Yes.
Who is going to apply? Master My Life is not going to apply. You are going to apply to the ICF. It's an online process. And ICF will ask you a fee of, say, $300 for that particular application.
Yeah, that I have seen. Yeah, true.
Right.
Correct.
And there is a one test, CK test. Of course, the Master My Life is going to help you in that CK test. And because you are going to apply online, and if you complete the ACTP program, which is the entire program of 6 modules, means your application is equal to you getting the credentials, because Master My Life will certify that you have already submitted the recordings to us, and this is the inspection report of the recording. And
that you told last time also.
Right.
Based on that only they will.
Once you pay the fee, ICF will say, that is, ICF will issue you another certificate. That another certificate, second certificate, is called as credentialing certificate.
Okay.
Now, who requires that? Now I will come to the main point. For example, you are a relationship coach. Now, in a relationship coaching, people are not bothered whether you have a separate second certificate of ICF credentials and all that. They will go to see your wall. There is already a ICF certificate stating that you are a coach. For a normal common person, it is more than enough.
Understand. Yes.
Only the top companies who have the access to the credential coach and all that, they might put this requirement. Again, whether they will put this requirement, I doubt. For example, my company was a very large company, German multinational. When they selected coach, they have not seen the credentialing and the of the coach. They have seen whether the coach has experience in the domain. And then they selected the coach. But few of the corporates might have a, say, filtering mechanism wherein they will say, okay, we will work with only PCC credential coach. There, then you might get some disadvantage in a competition because you are not credentialed and some other person is credentialed and he will get assignment. So generally, people in executive and business coaching goes for credentialing to secure their business and to improve their branding. Generally, people in the relationship coaching domain
will not do it.
Don't go because the common person is not interested in a second certificate. Common person wants a authentication. Are you real coach? Yes, the certificate, you are a real coach. Why? Because you not only you have to pay this, but you see, understand one thing. Master My Life is an educational enterprise. We are not a pure commercial enterprise. We are into education. Now, all American companies, whether it is ICF or ABC or XYZ, they are after money. because that is what they understand from the life. That is their way, right? So after each 3 years, you have to again pay them for the membership.
Yeah.
Again, they are going to ask you $300. After 6 years, again they have to ask you. So this is their mechanism. I'm not saying they are wrong or something like that. It is their way of living life, right? Mastermind life way is different, right? Means we are not seeing you as a product. We are not seeing you as an instrument of benefit. मतलब एक बार मेरे कब्जे में आया तो उसको मैं लाइफ टाइम प्रोडक्ट बेचूंगा. मेरा ऐसा कोई इंटेंशन नहीं है. मैं तो उल्टा मैं ऐसा बोलता हूँ कि खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना, खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि तेरी तकदीर लिखने से पहले खुदा बंदे से ये पूछे कि बता तेरी रजा क्या है.
So you mastermind life से आया हूँ मैं. Yes.
Yeah. So you have to be so competent that you do not need mastermind life and Hemant Lavangare.
True.
Hemant Lavangare is not a guru, and you should not be dependent on a guru called as Hemant Lavangare, or for that matter any other person, right? You are guru of your life, right? You become so competent from this particular program. Thereafter, why you have to pay to some agency to give you second, third, fourth certificate?
Yeah, true.
But yes, if you think that certificate will enhance your branding and the business, do it. There's absolutely
I mean, as you rightly said, ki some corporates may ask it. He said that is their elimination criteria. Ki only in that case, okay. And that could be possibly.
See, I am not at all telling you don't go for the credential. I am just giving you the thought clarity.
No, it is
the
very
decision
clear
is
now,
yours, right?
Yes,
I'm a coach.
Yes.
I'm only giving you the clarity. Now you have a clarity. With the clarity, you take a decision whether you want to go for the credential or you don't want to go.
But even without the credentials, coming back to the point, I have to apply, I have to undergo all these ethical practices, which ICF is anyway telling, because your certificate is MML ICF certificate.
Right. See, Hindu Sanskruti has Vedas.
Yes.
Right. So the Vedas has taught us some way, right, of some kind of ethics. So you are following that ethics because it is written in the Vedas, or you?
No, it is naturally. Naturally, it is a way of life for us.
So for your own well-being, you are following.
Yes.
Just because Krishna has said, or just because Vedas have been written some few thousand years of back, and on the page number 149, this particular clause is there, and
nothing of that sort.
So,
no.
You take the essence. ICF is not going to run after you, and they don't have time, energy, and the mechanism to follow you. Right? It is impossible for any other organization, whether it is ICF or Mastermind or any matter. So what are the ICF governing rules are there? They are for your benefit. With the 25 years of their experience, they have understood that if the coach as a professional has to succeed, has to make a mark, has to make a social impact, if the people need to believe the coach, right? People need to respect the coach. This is how the coach should behave.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
That is the guideline. So you follow that particular guideline for your own spirit, for your own benefit, not because ICF is saying, right? Exactly. Because if in coaching, why we say that the solution has to come from the coachee? Because if I will tell you or ICF will tell you, you will find a way to go around that, right? Because now you are thinking it as a guideline, some kind of paper, some kind of policing, some kind of audit. No. Do not think about that. You become a professional. You become a thorough professional. All these ICF guidelines will make you thorough professional. Right?
Yeah. Beautifully explained. Yeah, right.
Now,
yes.
There will be 10 coaches, out of which one may be knowing ICF, 9 may not be knowing ICF. So you are not going to do marketing of ICF. You are not going to tell them there is an international coaching federation in United States and I'm from, no. You are going to believe in you, right? You as a Prashant, person is not coming to ICF. He is not bothered about who is ICF. He is bothered about Prashant.
True. Yeah.
Right? So if the person specifically asks you on ICF, of course you explain you. Now, for example, you have in your life, you will get say 100 clients. One client may be such that if the client thinks that you are not adding value or you are doing something wrong, and if that client writes to ICF, because nowadays you have to just search on Google ICF and you will get their website, you will get their email IDs and all that. And if that person will write to ICF, that is, I was doing coaching with a ICF credential coach called as Prashant, and there is this problem. In such a eventuality, only ICF will inquire to you.
Otherwise, yes.
But that possibility is like time machine. So
yeah,
somebody inventing time machine, right? So, yes. So that possibility. So do not do, because Hemant is saying, After My Life is saying, ICF is saying, do it to become a thorough coach professional.
Abhi, it is clear. Yeah, it is a guiding principle what we are learning, and we have to go by that guiding principle. Yes, beautifully explained. Great, thank you.
No, Hemant sir, before we move forward, one request, sir, like never ever downplay yourself, sir, because I joined the course after seeing your videos on YouTube. So we cannot agree with the statement that you are not good at communication skills and all. Never, please.
Yeah. So Vijay Lanka, I appreciate your appreciative inquiry.
No, seriously, sir, I have seen your videos, so you're too good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, Ravi, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Hemant. This is for Hemant actually. I think he was mentioning that at the end of the course, we can choose our one of our niche areas like relationship or executive coaching. Yeah, in continuation to that, if we choose one of the areas as probably executive or business coaching, right? So, but for the initial 500 hours or whatever it may be, if we not exactly do executive coaching, but we might be talking to the clients as a normal coach, then in that case, how exactly we have to supply the hours?
Again, right? Of course, means you are asking this question because you are new to this particular program.
Yeah.
Number one, ICF doesn't ask you even the name of the coachee.
Okay.
Because ICF is from a country called as USA. Their privacy is 1,000 times more important than India. So there is no question that is they are interested in what exactly you have done. They are just making that particular process, right? Means, for example, there is a person called as Vijay Lanka who is already doing coaching in some form of other. So the Vijay Lanka, if submit the record that is okay, I am doing some 8 hours of coaching because my job itself is good. ICF is going to accept that. ICF is not going to challenge Vijay. No, just tell me what exact coaching you are doing and whether it is as per ICF or no. They will go for your record. Okay, 500 hours. You are saying you have done the coaching practice. You have the recordings. Whether ICF has passed that recording. Have you completed the coach training program? With that particular record, they are going to give you credentials. Clear? Right.
Yeah,
so it is not related to that. They actually, Master My Life is going much more systematic. What we are going to do, that is when you will choose any specialization, we are going to mentor you for that particular specialization and all that. Also, there will be some guidance provided to you from the Master My Life side. Do you know from where I have done coaching, right? The coach entire pattern is standard. And at the end of the 6 months, they had given me option. These are the 75 options of the specialization. You have to just tell us one and we will print that into the certificate.
Okay.
We are there.
Yeah.
So we are going to help you everything, even in finalizing which specialization. You will be mentored for that, depending upon your background and all that. So everything will come to you at a right time. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Hemant. So moving on to the next part of this responsibilities. Now, someone asked this question. I think Vijay only asked this question earlier, that under what scenario a coach may end up in agreement. So now there may be a situation where everybody, first and the foremost thing is that coach at any point of time in every coaching session has to be completely in sync, with a cool mind and without any mental baggage or any challenges which is there. Because justice will not be done to the coaching session if the coach is in a different mind. I am asking question to the coachee, but my mind is somewhere else. So that is a challenge. That's a gap. So at any point of time, because of any XYZ reason, something comes up for the coach, which can impair the entire coaching process, or it can create a conflict or interfere in the performance of the coach in terms of the asking questions or whatever thing. At that point of time, coach has got two options: either to seek out support from some professional help, or alternatively, even if it's required, that one can end the contract which is there. So this is something which is also for the coach also, because there can be any challenge which is there. It can be a health challenge, it can be anything which comes up with the coach, which puts the coach in a situation that one is not able to do justice. Then in that scenario, one can bring an end to this. At any point of time, wherever next part is, at any point of time where there is a conflict of interest working throughout any session, anywhere where there's a conflict of interest, that needs to be resolved. And if for that conflict, if it requires to bring an end to the coaching, terminate the coaching agreement, that also can be done. Conflict of interest should not be there at any point of time. And last but not the least, which I stated earlier also, as ICF members, one need to ensure that you maintain complete confidentiality of every single information, including the mobile numbers, telephone numbers. That is something which is really, really important. So this was about the responsibilities when it comes to the practice and performance. Before we move to the responsibility professionalism, yes, there is a question from Roxy. Yes, Roxy, please go ahead.
Uncle, you mentioned about conflict of interest. Can you give one example? So what sort of example come into conflict?
See, conflict of interest can be anything. I mean, say for example, let's take a case. Say the coachee has entered into something, with a particular agenda, and at a point of time you realize that the coachee has got some more vested interests which are associated with the coach. So that is completely a conflict of interest. The objective for which the person is coming for the coaching session, that is not my entire objective. I signed up for something, but I am interested in something more, something else. That during the process, if this thing comes out, that's completely a conflict of interest. So this is one of the examples which is there.
Yeah, but still I'm not in a specific example in terms of any situation.
So let us take a case. Say supposing let's take a case. Say XYZ person, a coach. Say let's say I'll take your example only. You are into multiple businesses which are there. You are also a coach. You are a consultant, and you are running say a business of say real estate also. I come to you as a coachee, which is there for whatever thing which is I want to get coached on. But later on during the session, you realize that I am interested in more curious about your other businesses. I have some vested interest in terms of getting into a coaching contract with you because I have got, I want to get some benefit out of the other, your other business. That is something which we can call it as a conflict of interest.
So Ankur, just to go back on the example that you gave earlier, you said like one of the GM is supposed to become a CTO and then you have CFO and then you coached him, right? So at the same time, let's say there are two candidates whom you have to coach and select one guy or give some report on. So probably one of guy is like a distant relative or is your senior in the college or is relative to your wife or something. So in a way, if he's connected, so will that become a conflict of interest where you have more interested in that guy?
No, first and foremost thing, yeah, it's a very nice question which you have asked, Vijay. I would like to answer this question in two parts. Prima facie, at any point of time, one must refrain from coaching their relatives, friends, or close associates. Reason being that, because since you know the person, it's invariably the coach comes with a biased opinion. So that will derail the entire coaching principles, because somebody will be having, okay, I know this very good friend of mine. Never ever take that assignment. So coming to your point, one must not accept that assignment only fundamentally because there is a background to it, you know something about it, and that will not be the true justice to this entire thing.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
One must never do it. In fact, a lot of my, it happens with everybody. A lot of the friends come up and say, I want to take coaching. I said, I don't want to coach you. Irrespective of the professional fee, I can refer it to somebody else. That's the way it has to be. Right? Yes, Pankaj. You had a question. You're on mute. Yes.
Yeah. See, I just want to check. Say if we coach someone, and when the coaching period is over, right? Then can and a person wants to engage us in their say business, some kind of say activity or say some assignment they want to give us, then we can accept those kind of assignment.
You have to enter into a fresh agreement, fresh contract, and you can definitely take it forward. That has to be completely, it has to be separate from the coaching. Current coaching assignment, once it comes to an end, you want to get into something else, you are free to do it.
Right. So that means at the time when the coaching agreement is valid and that particular period is going on, during that period, we cannot enter into any other agreement which is on different commercials, right?
You can do it, but there has to be a separate agreement. Okay. Like that's what we discussed a couple of minutes back. That
Yes, that's
have
what
a separate independent agreement. So now, say for example, in a company, you are doing consulting assignment also with a particular, say SBU. And say in with certain individuals, you are doing coaching also. Can you do it? The question is, the answer is yes, definitely you can do it. Having said that, there has to be separate agreements for it. And it should not clash. It should not overlap over here. And at any point of time, it should not get mixed up.
Understand? Because sometimes what it can practically happens, say if you are consulting someone and over a period of time, they come to us, okay, you can coach us or can you help us, right? So in that, probably we can say yes, but it can be a separate agreement and then you can take it forward, both assignments separately.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ramakrishna, you had a question?
Yeah, Ankur, are you saying that coaches should be totally unknown person for coaching? He should not be friends, relative or any known person by their past?
See, what is the reason behind it? The reason behind it is that if you know somebody, let's take the example, one very good friend of yours come for a coaching session, whom you know for last, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You already know the background of that person, what all things the person has gone through, and that may change your way of questioning because there's already a mental wiring which is already there existing in your mind about the person. So if we are talking of a best results out of a particular coaching session, yes, one must look for somebody whom you are not, whom you have not met or something. But at the same point of time, yes, obviously through references and everything, that's a different story.
See, means what we can recommend to you, that is barring your close family relations. Means, for example, means this is what I follow. I do not coach my mother, father, and spouse. I refrain from coaching them, right? So that is my way. Now, definitely at start, you are going to get business from your known people. There is nothing wrong in doing coaching to the known people. With a good training, you are going to develop to a level where you will understand your own biases and you will not bring those biases during the coaching. Once you will wear a professional hat, a coach professional hat, you are not going to think about, okay, अच्छा इसने मेरे से 500 रुपए उधार लिए थे और मुझे वापस नहीं किए, right? So you are going to forget that because now you are not acting as a friend, you are acting as a say coach. So yes, doing coaching to the known people is natural, but doing coaching to the very close blood relatives, parents, and the spouses can be avoided because it is better to refer them to another coach. So this is generally what coaches do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving on to the next part of the responsibilities, which is the third part. Now, third part is there in the fourth one, responsibility to professionalism. So now this is something in this, it talks about first and the foremost thing that at any point of time, one must not misstate their credentials or their competencies. For example, say somebody is not certified and yet they are using that okay, I'm certified in this XYZ thing, I'm certified in EI, or whatever the case may be. As a coach, please, one must never do this thing. Whatever are the exactly true credentials, that is something which has to be stated very, very clearly across in all forms of your communication. Second point which comes is that when it comes to our professionalism, at all points of time, create an awareness and inform the concerned parties about the responsibilities as established by this code. So in other words, at all points of time, you need to keep the relevant parties informed that this is what has been stated in the code of ethics, and this is how we are following that thing. Another point which comes the next part of the responsibility is that now there are different, if we say different cultural boundaries, every single geography, every single culture has got different, I would say, governance of that. At that point of time, as a coach, one need to be very, very sensitive about that fact so that one does not hurt anybody or get into something which can impact the overall cultural scenario of a particular coach, coachee. This is about that. And plus, last but not the least, when it comes to responsibility about professionalism, at any point of time, never ever get into, as a coach, into any type of intimate or sexual relationship with the coachee. This is something which is very, very important. And if at any point of time, please take the immediate action and cancel the assignment. So another scenario where the coach has got the liberty to bring the entire coaching agreement to an end at that point of time. This is something which is, so these are the 3-4 scenarios where as a coach has got the right to terminate the agreement at any point of time. So this was towards the coaching responsibility towards the professionalism. And now we move to the 4th section, that is responsibility to society. Now here let us understand something that at any point of time as a coach, one must not do any type of discrimination. One may get a coachee from a rural area also, one may get a coachee from with different geographies, different religions, different nationality, different ethnicity, sexual orientation, whatever you can call of. At any point of time, one must maintain that fairness and equality in that. Like we discussed, irrespective of the compensation, the coaching fees is there, the coaching quality has to be maintained. Over here also, irrespective, the coachees from whichever part of the globe, that standard has to be maintained. And one must not at any point of time judge the coachee, okay, somebody has come from a, say, XYZ place, so this person is like that, or whatever the case may be. Have complete neutrality in that thing. Second important point which comes is this, when we are talking of responsibility to the society. Now, all of us, everybody uses different kind of resources. At any point of time, if you are using or utilizing the resource of any body, state that thing. One must respect the intellectual property of others. As a coach, at any point of time, one should not say that, okay, for example, say some assessment has been designed by XYZ body, and the coach picks up and puts their name and says, okay, this has been designed by me. No, that's completely unethical. At any point of time, one must not claim any type of ownership of any material which is not owned by them. That is completely a breach of the ethical standard. And yes, one has to be completely honest within the specific standards at all points of time, the guidelines stated and the boundaries of competence when conducting the entire coaching session. And last but not the least, when we are talking of responsibility to society, one must be aware what you and your clients are going to create an impact on the society. It has to be for the general overall well-being and the good. At any point of time, one must not get into the coaching to coach somebody where the overall output is not right for the society, or it is detrimental to the interest of society. So whatever the coaching is being happening, it has to happen that it should overall add to the benefit of the society. It should be for the good.
It's like we don't coach Dawood Ibrahim like that.
Absolutely, you said it right. You said it absolutely right. So these are the four broader sections where today we have dissected this entire thing. And before I will just share with you, there is one pledge of ethics also, which I will read through. So these are the four responsibilities which were there, 4 different sections of it. I would urge everybody, go through it, read it. And after we have discussed today, once you read through it, you will get a much more better understanding. So before we move to the next question answer session, there's a pledge of ethics of the ICF professional. I will just read through it. As an ICF professional, in accordance with the standards of ICF Code of Ethics, I acknowledge and agree to fulfill my ethical and legal obligations to my coaching clients, sponsors, colleagues, and to the public at large. If I breach any part of ICF Code of Ethics, I agree that the ICF is in the sole discretion may hold me accountable for doing so. I further agree my accountability to the ICF for any breach may include sanctions such as mandatory additional coach training or any other education or loss of my ICF membership or my ICF credentials. So this is something which is there as I would say, pledge of ethics of an ICF professional. So this was about the overall, we deep dive into the entire competency for ethical practice. Please feel free to ask any questions if you are having at this point of time, or you want to share any reflections or anything which is there.
So Ankur, what I can say is that it is more like we do it. I mean, we keep on practicing it, and like till such time, like for 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months, we be a little conscious about like, are we following in this, or like, is there something coming in? The moment we do it, like I think that is very reason why we have like 100 hours or 500 hours of practice, so that we can get that how Ashwini used to say, or Milind used to say, the unconscious competence. So I think we'll get it, but as you say, right, we do something, but we don't do holistically the same, all the things, but some parts, some pockets we do. We will adhere to all these things, that whatever you're saying now.
See, in this thing, one very important point comes, very nice point by you, Vijay. How we can make it start that this entire thing gets sink in everybody. First and the foremost thing is that the moment a coach is mindful about getting into a contract, that is the time when all these things will automatically get triggered. And if I get into a coaching assignment only on verbal communication, okay, let's do 5-6 sessions, then somewhere this thing gets diluted. The moment it is put into pen and paper, everybody, both the parties are aware, they have signed it, that awareness comes in the minds of coach, and then it gets sinking into the overall system over a period of time.
I think considering the overall importance of this ethics, what you're telling, no? Yeah. You have given us a wonderful chance for 5 sessions as a coach, 5 sessions as a coaching. So what I would like is that I would tell Daisy specifically, keep in mind that ethics will have somewhere on the back of mind or somewhere. And if either of us is making some kind of a deviation from that, I think if that is made to know to the coachee or coach, either of them, I think that will be a good kind of a thing. So possibly these 10 sessions that we are going to do in the period of next 2 months can be utilized majorly in this aspect also. That is what I feel.
Absolutely.
Is it clear, na? Whenever there is a problem, you must come out and say, sir, wait. You are making a breach of ICF guidelines, right?
Absolutely. So if you see in last 2 sessions, it was more of a completely discussion. Next session onwards, we are again going to deep dive into the practice sessions, where whatever competency we are going to discuss, that will be applied over there. And that's the point when what you are saying, everybody will be mindful. And
we have to conscientiously be aware of it. I mean, we cannot take it just lightly. No? I mean, we are focusing on technical aspects of it, let's say coaching, but then this aspect also is so important. This is my suggestion, at least.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful suggestion. And whether it's a buddy coaching or it's a 3-way coaching where there is an observer also, everybody be mindful about this thing, that the second person is something which is not going in the right direction. that needs to be corrected.
Correct. That's
Very nice point. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Any other question, any thoughts, any other points which you would like, anybody wants to share? Yes, Roxy.
Yeah, Ankur, in my experience in the industry and the value system which we look at, there is never gray area in ethical values. It's either yes or it's either no. It's 100%. People say, oh, 70% we have acted ethically, 25% no here and there. But in ethical value system, it's always black and white. It's never gray area.
Absolutely.
If that is the way we follow, I think everything will fall in place.
What you are saying is right. That is the way actually it has to be. Either one is ethical or one is unethical.
Yeah. Yeah, many of them give example, oh, 75%, 80%, we are okay ethical, but this chalta hai. That is not the way we need to look at this.
I completely agree with you. That's not the way one has to look at when it comes to especially the coaching. Since we are discussing about the coaching in specific and ICF ethical practice competency, definitely there is no room for that. It has to be either black and white, either yes or no. Completely agree with you. Yes, next question.
Hello.
Yes, Hitesh, please go ahead.
So what I actually want to ask really is legal things, like suppose there are so many things we are using as a coach and trainer everywhere, but we don't know actually the source of it. Like there are two options. One is either that the tool is owned by someone, or that same thing is copyrighted by someone. But when it's in second or third generation, from where we learned, we lost the track of whether it is copyrighted or not. So is there any way to understand that whether the thing we are using is ethical legal to use or not, or how do we know?
Right. So to answer to your question, every tool, wherever you are getting it from there is a terms of agreement which is there, which states what all things can be done in this thing. Either one has bought a particular tool, then that person is a license holder for using that tool. That is one part. If the tool has come from different sources, most of the times it has got terms of agreement which states that you cannot use it for, say, selling it in the market. You can use it for only for this purpose. That is which is stated. In case if something comes up where you are not aware about this thing, please ask the source. Please check with the source that from where did you get this thing and what are the terms of agreement for this.
So to manage this, because this is basically very sensitive topic globally, not in India. India mein chalta hai, but there are many countries where this is very serious and people can sue you and all that. So this is the reason why Mastermind Lab has developed their own test. So this test is my test, right? So it means it is not from the original instrument maker. Life purpose test is developed by us. Of course, we have that particular competency, so we are in a position to do it. Now, on net, there are many free tests available. So wherein the test will have their own branding and all that. So you can definitely use any free test. Now, for example, if there is any paid version of the test and you are copying it and saying that it is your test, then that is wrong. Then it is unethical. There is no problem in using any free available test for the masses already available on Google, and they are asking you to take it for free, and you are not changing their name. Means not that means you are cancelling their name and putting your name. Then it is a breach. But if you are asking Kochi that there is this test available on the internet, do that particular test. Absolutely no problem.
So my next question was here. Basically, suppose now when we come across something which is actually copyrighted by someone or some institute,
yes,
and we can take it further as a research concern, because in research we take something to the next level, because there is
okay. So to cut the discussion short, answer is no. Yeah, got it.
May I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that, in chapter 11 at the end, the link is given for that ICF competency series videos, in which that ethics and all that very well explained those videos. If we go through it, it really gives a lot of clarity. So just thought, since I had gone through it before coming for class, I thought I'd, tell the others, please go through it.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I would again and again reiterate, Coach Study Guide is so extensive, so nice. Once everybody goes through, whether it's a video or a podcast or everything, please go through it. If you have not been going through it, trust me, it will make these sessions much more enriching. You will be able to ask more powerful questions and have a much more meaningful discussion. So Coach Study Guide is the must. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, next question. Alka, you had a question? Or you want to share something?
I want to share my experience with the
Please.
life coach. Because now I know about the ethical practices. So last year, my daughter had some anxiety issue. She is in hostel. So I just found out from the net one life coach, and we, we talked to him. He talked to my daughter, and he said that she has anxiety issue, and 4 sessions would be required. I said, okay, fine. So first session went by. Then for the second session, which was supposed to be say on Friday. So from Wednesday, he started messaging me that to pay the money. So like Wednesday, he has messaged me. Then Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, pay the money. So I paid the money for the second session also. In second session also, when she was there in the second session, she told me that half of the time he told my daughter that you tell your mother to pay the money on time. So like it was for 1 hour, but half an hour he said this only, you just convince your parents to pay the money. So for the third session, again it started that from Wednesday he started, there was no contract, nothing was there. And he was like money-minded person. So I asked him from where you have done your, because I was not knowing about this life coaching. So that time he only said, I am a qualified life coach, and he has given me some institute also.
Okay, Alka,
Yes,
I
sir.
got your point. Now tell me, because since we are all learning, tell me who is responsible for this particular problem?
I am responsible because I have not at all inquired.
Exactly. So the number one, you are responsible.
Yes.
Good that you accepted that. Number two, right? The topic what you are bringing in, the anxiety, is a borderline case between coaching and counseling.
Okay.
So generally, for these kind of cases, counseling work better. Because unless the life coach has a background of psychology and great amount of knowledge in this particular domain, the life coach only by following life coaching process may not be in a position to prove a great help. But a counselor who is a psychologist can prove a great help in these kind of cases. Depression, anxiety, these are borderline cases. A well qualified, knowledgeable psychology background life coach also can do it, and a counselor also can do it. So selection of either coach or counselor is a paramount importance, and good for sharing this particular example, because now everyone is very clear on example of non-ethical practice. So this is an example of non-ethical practice.
Non-ethical practice.
Yeah.
It was the duty of that coach also. He would have told me that this is the part of counselor. He did not tell me.
Yeah, good. So I was expecting this. Good that you mentioned it. Always remember, whatever happens to your life, either good or bad, only you are responsible. The third party is never the responsible. It is the it is called as a bhram, right? So it is the bhram in our mind that coach is responsible. He should have told me. What are we talking? Okay, I think you got it. So once you take the responsibility, you are in charge of the situation. Once you are in charge of the situation, then you can mold the situation the way you want. And that is why a knowledge, a proper decision making is required. And we are also going to cover decision making in our program. Why? Because unless coach has a holistic wisdom, right? That holistic wisdom will not get transferred to the coachee. So first we need to be on hold of our life, not in a dominating way, on hold of our life in a wisdom way. So once we understand how to take decisions, how to analyze, right, then we can really give proper assignments to the coachee as well, right? So all that we are going to cover it, but fantastic point. Yeah, fantastic point. Thank you.
Thank you.